What's up, guys? This is the best under 20 KZ IAMs of the year, in my personal opinion. Not so personal, really, because I think a lot of people would agree with me in terms of my picks here. They came out with a couple of other IAMs this year, but I believe that these are the top three. This is the KZ ZSA. This is the smallest of the three and potentially the easiest to stow away. Best to have in your pocket, maybe. This is the ES4. I think this is the one that came out first. It's got that system board under the shell look, and there's actually a crossover in here apparently, according to a comment that I got on one of my earlier videos. This is the ZSA, maybe the nicest looking of the three. It's got that cool brass nozzle. Not that you're going to be looking at that, but I think when you have this in your ear, it may look the nicest. And this is the newest in terms of release dates. So let's break it down. The ES4 was the first one that I got, and it really made me think twice about how I was feeling towards KZ prior to that. They'd come out with a couple of ones that I wasn't so hot on, especially considering that my favorite, and I believe the apex, the top of the king of the hill in terms of KZ, is the KZ ZS5 V1, which is right here. I believe that this is the best they've ever done in terms of their tuning. It just has this really holographic 3D soundstage that I think that they haven't matched yet. When I first got the ZSN, I thought it was close, but in direct comparison, the ZSN V1 is still better. It's just got more mid-bass presence. It's got a slower, sort of nice, slow decay bass, and the best bass presence out of the four of these, and best bass control, really. But if we're not considering that one, the one that has the best bass control out of the three of these, I believe, is this guy here, the KZ-ZSN. The ES4 is quite good as well, but with the ES4, what you're getting is maybe something that is potentially a little bit more natural sounding. It's got a more recessed treble, which is not a bad thing. When you think about it, there's a lot of people that are treble sensitive. And if you're talking about listening to something over long listening sessions, then maybe this is your number one pick, because this guy is not going to have any sibilance across any musical genre whatsoever. However, on older genres, maybe it doesn't bring out the details as much as its brothers here, the ZSA and the ZSN. So I do find that long listening sessions, yes, please, this is the one to go with, but maybe you don't get the details of these three. If you don't factor in these guys existing, then obviously this is the one you go with. And I think that this represents a real niche. There is people that are treble sensitive and don't like that. What can be perceived as a little bit more of a thin sound. These guys have thicker vocals, maybe more weight to everything. Maybe the instruments sound a little bit rounder, and maybe that is something you're going for. But as such, there's less shimmer upstairs. So above 10K, these guys have a little bit more sparkle and sound a little bit clearer. The clarity levels are higher than you get on the ES4. ZSN across the board, though, does everything well. It's got a mid-bass presence, but it doesn't have as much mid-bass as these two, actually. It is neutral, but great sparkle upstairs, and there's a little bit of sub-bass as well. Now, the bass is not overpowering on them. This is not a bass head or bass cannon IEM. It does respond really well to EQ, and it is my personal favorite of the three. ZSA is very good as well. It's the smallest of the three, the easiest to stick in your pocket and have it disappear, but it is also the most recessed of the three. So in that regard, you could look at it as potentially the most V-shaped, and that would be true. Whereas the vocals are maybe one step back from the stage for these guys. Actually, vocals are maybe right on par, right on a straight line for the ZSN, maybe one step back for the ES4, and maybe 3 steps back on this guy. So we definitely get that V curve on this guy, which is sort of sort of baseline for an IEM nowadays. Not really nowadays. When you think back, things have always been V-shaped. Maybe that's because we factor in the Harman response, and that is something that changes from year to year. But that is something that where that is what people would be looking for most naturally in terms of how people perceive things mentally and hear things in their ears across the board. At least that's what we assume. No one hears things exactly the same as another person. There's people, as you get older, your hearing changes, right? And it becomes less sharp, and maybe you don't hear up above, let's say, 13, 14K. So sparkle sort of disappears whether you like it or not. Anyways, that's another story. I do like all three of these. I think that they all have their, I think that they're all an excellent bargain under $10. But my personal favorite is the ZSN. And this kind of is something that I noticed right away. I will say that the thing about the ZSN is it doesn't have that 3D holographic soundstage of the ZS5 V1. When I first got the ZSN, I was really, really excited about how it sounded, and it was my favorite IEM that I had heard from KZ in a long time. And going back and listening to all the KZ IEMs, I haven't heard the ZS10, I haven't heard the AS10, I haven't heard anything above the $50 mark from KZ, at least a regular price $50 mark. But out of the ones that I have, this is the one that was my favorite all along, bar none, no comparison. The ZS6 was way too sibilant for me, way too sharp in the treble region. It just drove me crazy. The ZS5 V1, I feel like they got it perfect. It does have the V shape of this guy. However, it does a better job. More holographic here. Everything is clearer. It's got the clarity of this guy. So when it comes to ignoring pretend the ZS5 V1 doesn't exist. Out of the three of these, my favorite is the ZSN because I believe that it comes closer to that in quality of sound. But in terms of, I think, sound intent, the ZSA is intended to sound close in terms of the tuning, closest to the ZS5 V1 because it has that V-shaped tuning. The ZS5 V1 does it much better. Again, ES4, natural sounding, good roundness and weight to everything, but there is a lack of treble lift on this guy. ZSN, the best of the three, really. So that's pretty much it. They're all good performers in their own ways. I prefer the ZSN out of the three. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you in the new year. Cheers.